Let's dive right into this explainer and look at a genuine biological mystery. How exactly a cold-blooded giant survived freezing global temperatures. We're talking about one of the most resilient creatures on planet Earth, the crocodilian. I mean, these animals literally survived the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. But today, we're going to focus on an even more perplexing survival story.
So here's the ultimate paradox. How did a giant, cold-blooded killer survive the Ice Age? By definition, cold-blooded reptiles just cannot generate their own body heat. They rely entirely on external environmental factors to stay warm, to have energy, and to perform basic bodily functions. So theoretically, an ice age should have been an absolute death sentence for them. A freezing planet is pretty much the exact opposite of what a massive reptile needs to survive.
To really grasp the scale of this threat, we've got to look at the timeline. The Ice Age, which, fun fact, we're currently still technically in, began about 34 million years ago. But the intensity of this freezing has fluctuated wildly over time. We want to zero in on a period known as the last glacial maximum, which hit a bit over 30,000 years ago. During this time, global temperatures plummeted by over 6 degrees Celsius, or about 11 degrees Fahrenheit. And the physical environment was just unimaginably brutal. Even during the summer, a full 25% of the Earth's landmass was completely covered in ice. We're talking about monstrous ice sheets up to 4 kilometers or 2.5 miles thick. That's nearly 5 times the height of the world's tallest building today. It's crazy to think about. This devastating environment wipes out countless massive cold-blooded reptiles and totally shifted the paradigm of life on Earth. Yet somehow, the crocodile remained. How? Well, let's unravel this puzzle.
Let's look at clue number 1. Aquatic real estate.
What's really fascinating here is how water acts as a massive thermal buffer against sudden climate changes. Crocodilians are semi-aquatic, so they spend vast amounts of their lives submerged. And this simple lifestyle choice was a huge evolutionary advantage. Contrary to what a quick, cold bath might make you think, large bodies of water are actually really hard to cool down. It takes significantly more energy to change the temperature of an aquatic environment than a terrestrial one. So while animals up on land were dealing with severe, sudden temperature drops, the crocodilians hanging out in the water had much more time to adapt to the shifting climate. But water can obviously still freeze. And that brings us to a bit of simple geography. The Earth during the last glacial maximum wasn't just a complete snow globe. There were still warm, tropical hotspots near the equator. If you look at modern crocodile ranges today, they perfectly align with the exact regions that remained ice-free thousands of years ago. So they survived in large part by just staying the heck away from the ice sheets. But finding a warm patch of water is only half the battle. A colder climate also meant massive food chain collapses. So how did these giants keep themselves fed when everything else was starving?
That brings us to clue number 2, the ultimate energy savers.
The absolute crucial point here is this staggering number, 220. That is the maximum amount of food, in pounds, that a massive 2-ton adult saltwater crocodile might eat in an entire year in captivity. Yes, you heard that right, an entire year. This brilliantly illustrates their crazy slow metabolisms and hyper-efficient digestive systems compared to mammals. To put that 220 pounds into perspective, an average human, who is roughly 10 times smaller than a massive saltwater croc, will eat nearly a ton of food in a year, almost 2,000 pounds. Because crocodiles have such unbelievably efficient digestion, practically none of the energy from their food goes to waste. They can simply fast for months on end if the cold weather makes hunting too difficult. And when they did need to eat during the freezing ice age, they didn't waste precious energy trekking through the snow tracking prey. Nope, they used what you could call the Ice Age version of Uber Eats. Because every animal eventually has to come to the water to drink, crocodiles just waited at the water's edge. They conserved all their energy and relied on ambush hunting, requiring only a quick burst of power when thirsty prey came directly to them. And when that prey finally did arrive, oh man, they made it count. Crocodiles are incredibly flexible eaters. Some species can devour up to 50% of their entire body weight in just one single sitting. To put that into perspective, that'd be like an average adult human sitting down and eating 14 full-size chickens in one go. So they feast, and then they can totally afford to fast. But of course, to take down whatever scarce prey was left in this environment, you need serious weaponry. Which leads us to clue number 3, built for battle.
Crocodilians possess some ridiculously overpowered offensive and defensive capabilities that basically make them unkillable. Just take a look at this number, 16,000. That's the amount of force, measured in newtons, that a saltwater crocodile bites with. It holds the title for the strongest verified bite force on the planet. To give you an idea of what that actually feels like, it's easily more than enough force to instantly shatter a human femur, which is the strongest bone in your entire body.
Aside from those bone-crushing jaws and their infamous rotational death roll, they boast a built-in defense system. They're covered in tough scales and bony plates underneath the skin called osteoderms, which act as literal subdermal armor. And they'll eat just about anything, from insects to cattle. There's actually a wild recent story of an Australian man who was grabbed by a croc. He managed to escape by repeatedly stabbing the crocodile in the head with a large hunting knife. The croc eventually let go, but later it was found to be perfectly fine, with only superficial scrapes on its head from this massive blade. I mean, they are practically indestructible.
Now for the final piece of the puzzle. Clue number 4. Hidden biological superpowers.
So what happens when the temperatures drop so incredibly low that even their warm water hotspots start to freeze over? This is where the crocodile brings out its most bizarre evolutionary cheat codes. To survive freezing temps, species like the American alligator enter a state called brumation. It's kind of similar to hibernation, but a little different. In brumation, their metabolic rate slows to an absolute crawl. They become incredibly lethargic and stop eating entirely, but they'll wake up just enough to keep drinking water so they don't dehydrate.
And when the water actually freezes over, they execute one of the most incredibly meddled survival tactics in the entire animal kingdom. First, they might construct warm mud holes to trap extra heat, but if the surface freezes completely, they'll push their snout just above the surface of the water right before it hardens. They then allow the water to completely freeze solid around their bodies, using their snout as a biological snorkel. They just stay submerged and suspended in the ice, literally frozen in place, waiting out the freeze.
And they've got a whole arsenal of other cold weather tricks too. When basking, they can literally flatten their skin to increase their surface area and absorb more sunlight. Some, like the mugger crocodile, will shift into underground burrows. Nile and saltwater crocs will dive to deeper, warmer waters that aren't impacted by the freezing surface air. They even have this specialized heart shunt that redirects oxygen away from their lungs straight to their vital organs, so they can stay completely submerged for massive lengths of time.
But their final superpower might actually be their most impressive. Normally, surviving severe cold just wreaks havoc on an animal's immune system. But crocodilians possess blood so incredibly potent it basically acts as an indestructible shield. Their blood contains extremely high concentrations of antimicrobial peptides, allowing them to heal severe, potentially fatal wounds in a matter of days, completely staving off infection even in the harshest immune-weakening cold.
To prove how wildly overpowered their immune system is, scientists actually put it to the test in a lab. When exposed to crocodile blood, numerous severe bacteria, fungi, and parasites were completely eradicated. In one mind-blowing study, researchers introduced alligator blood to human blood teeming with the HIV virus. And guess what? The crocodile blood completely eradicated the HIV in the lab setting. Their immune system is just functioning on an entirely different level than ours, which is exactly why modern medical researchers are studying their blood today to develop next-generation human antibiotics.
So, when you put all these clues together, their thermal aquatic homes, their unbelievably slow metabolisms, their armored bodies, those crazy biological snorkels, and their superpowered blood, it all becomes clear. They didn't just get lucky. As the source material perfectly sums it up, they are simply built different. They are truly wonders of evolution.
They watched the dinosaurs die from an asteroid. They watched massive prehistoric mammals freeze to death during the last glacial maximum. They just dug their snouts into the ice and waited the whole thing out. Which leaves us with one incredibly haunting yet fascinating final thought. If a global ice age and an asteroid couldn't wipe out the crocodile, what possibly could? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.